everyone, Colin Christianson here with Tenacious Ventures. We're here at NWES, the expo, and we are talking to some of the interesting people that we have on the floor and at the event here. So with me today, I have Alex Martin with Synchronicity Events. And so we are going to talk about some of the interesting things that Alex is involved with. And we're going to ask some questions to hear more about her. So Alex, go ahead and give us a little bit of a background.
Okay. So I'm Alex Martin. I use she and her pronouns. I'm the owner and founder of a event planning company called Synchronicity Events. We work mostly with nonprofit organizations. So about 85% of our projects will have a fundraising goal. So we do the breakfast, the lunches, the dinners. And then we do the conferences and the festivals and other spaces that nonprofits are trying to create for their community. So that's really, and my background is really, this is the only work I've ever done.
Since you were 22.
Since I was 22. Yeah, I answered an ad in the Seattle Weekly when it used to be made out of paper. And it used to be something called the Seattle Weekly, which was like a free paper that we could pick up. And it had job ads in the back. And I answered an ad and I became the organizer for an auction for NARAL Pro-Choice Washington, basically. And that was my first job. And I haven't applied for a job since. I really just then started bouncing to nonprofits and doing the work and then graduating up and building my expertise throughout the centuries, it feels.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what are some of the nonprofits that you work with?
Oh my gosh, we just did a beautiful gala for Henry Art Gallery. We just did a beautiful gala for API Chaya. Beautiful event for Landesa, which is a group that does international land rights work. So we have like kind of I wouldn't say we specialize in any particular part of the nonprofit sector, so we're covering arts, we're covering social and human services, we're covering international orgs and NGOs. So it's really just like where we find some values connection, we thrive there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds, with the focus on nonprofits there too, I know some of it's from early days, but what kind of like focus and intention are you, what is like your mission and goal, I guess I should say, on working with them? And when they come to you, how do you kind of look at the value that you're adding to them and what you're bringing to the table?
Yeah, I think my overall goal for my career, such as it is that really, here in Seattle, and it may be the case in other cities too, but I really know Seattle the best. Nonprofit events are a pretty serious business, and it's we kind of joke about it. We'll be like, oh, this is what we do for fun on the weekends in Seattle. We go to fundraisers, and it can feel that way. When you're going to the school auction, you're going to the luncheon for the group. You're kind of bouncing around. The social circuit is really made of these events. So my number one goal is actually that every single organization could throw an event that's really worth attending. So even if it's not my client, like I'm really, really passionate about kind of spreading best practices, making sure that, all these events are elevating. So even if you can't afford to hire a professional event planning company such as mine, we want to share those tips. We want to share those best practices so that folks can have a smooth, successful event that showcases their expertise and their impact, and that the guests feel that was worth my time, right? Like I learned something, I had a good experience, the food was edible, that whatever metrics we want to measure, anyway. So in terms of what do we bring to that conversation, I think there's for nonprofits, we're sort of trying to bring fundraising strategy and event planning strategy, but also just the nuts and bolts of production. Hey, let's get your vendors all on the same page. That's the stuff that when you've never done it before, it's quite difficult, frankly. It really is hard. And in many nonprofit organizations, they'll be delegating this work to the brand new volunteer or the brand new intern and hoping that person can pull it off. And it's a bit of a toxic practice, to be honest, because you're kind of saddling someone with a lot of responsibility when they don't have the expertise or anyone to coach them on it, because the previous person may have departed and not left any documentation on how the event is done. Anyway, those are some of the pieces that I'm really trying to put my arms around and make sure everyone in the community is aware of how to do better.
Kind of create more of a smoother experience. And Seattle is one of the largest philanthropic hubs in the entire United States. So like you said, going to the fundraisers just for fun on the weekends, like I can agree with that. Like they are fun. And you're one of the ones that puts them on. So they are fun.
Should be fun. It should feel like I'm part of something special. As a guest, like I belong here and I'm part of something and I'm making an impact. That's what we want people to feel.
Well, and even then, like even the kind of crowds and people and communities that come together around some of those causes, like I just think it's like it's an incredible group of people to really mingle and socialize with as well, because they're socializing while supporting a cause. So that's one of the reasons that I really like going to
Mhm.
them, actually, is because like just like not only is the event amazing, but the
Yeah.
kind of people that you get surrounded by are actually amazing and a lot of
I love
fun.
you bringing that up. That's exactly why we love the work we do, and that's why we don't venture so often into those corporate events or personal events. Because when you're doing the nonprofit event, you can guess everyone's showing up with their best spirit
Yeah.
to donate and or just to lend their energy even to something that they actually care about.
Yeah.
So it's just it's the best way to meet people. I
Yeah.
think.
I agree.
I love that. I love that you elevated that. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, and then some of the extension to that, then, because I know we've done some of the live broadcasts and integrations and fundraising to digitize kind of the event. And oftentimes we take the lead from the event organizer and understand what themes and aesthetics are being planned on site. And then we'll take that into the digital interactive realm to try to include this virtual audience that might not be able to physically be there. So are you doing any of that kind of stuff, or what kind of elements have you looked at for that?
Yeah, we did. Currently we do about 40 events a year, and we've pretty much pivoted back to mostly in person. We have a
Yeah.
couple hybrids. I think last year we did one fully remote event, fully remote fundraising event. But just last weekend we did a big full scale synchronous hybrid, and it is exciting, because
Yeah.
we had people tuning in for that event internationally. We had people in the
Yeah.
Philippines, Australia, tuning in. It was morning for them. It's nighttime for us. It's fun.
Yeah.
And just getting that interaction and play and feeling that energy from literally across the globe for this work that this group is doing. So that's exciting. I feel like I'm so proud of my team for like the way we learned those skills. We learned to really write those double cue sheets for the hybrid event. You've got your
Yeah.
in the room cue, you've got your live stream cue. Your team knows all about it.
Yeah.
But that we were able to kind of translate some of that to our nonprofit clients and say, hey, here's what we can do. It's a heck of a lot of work, but if you
Yeah.
do it, you might feel these good vibes, and you might see some donations come in
Yeah.
from around the world, around the country, around the state as well. I think going forward, it's just hard to know how much appetite my clients will continue to have for
Yeah.
that, because it is a cost that they're going to have to look at the ROI on and continue evaluating. Like, hey, how much do we want to reach those faraway people, or even people in town who are like, oh, it's for whatever reason they're not coming out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So with some of the innovation that's happening in the industry, what kind of things do you see being innovated in your industry space, especially since you'll have these eyes and ears in the nonprofit space? So how are events starting to evolve? Are they changing? Are they staying, going back to pre-pandemic
Yeah.
kind of events,
Yeah.
or what are you
Mhm.
seeing?
Yeah, specifically for nonprofit, I think aside from all the disruptions of the lockdown and coming back out of it, which I think everyone's navigating, you're totally right. Some folks have gone directly back to their traditions,
Yeah.
and I think traditions are comforting. So I'm not mad about that. It's like, okay, you loved what you had, and you just want it back, and we can build it for you. It unfortunately will cost 25% more than it did in 2019. But that's not our fault. That's just inflation. That's the good wages we're trying to pay people in the industry. That's the cost of food. So we can definitely rebuild what was there, and we are for many clients. And then others are really innovating. I think one of the key drivers of innovation, particularly in nonprofit events right now, is kind of some new theories and principles called community-centric fundraising, which is just a kind of new theory and movement around holding your whole organization actually to some standards around accessibility and community inclusivity.
Yeah.
And that is really, I love the challenge of trying to marry those principles with an event, because
Mhm.
events are often exclusive. Your room is only so big. You can only invite so many humans. Which humans are invited?
Yeah.
How are we? Anyway, there's so much to work on there. I feel like
Yeah.
that could be the next 10 years of my career, is to just kind of continue finding ways to filter and apply those principles in ways that work for each of my clients, that
Yeah.
like customize to them and to help them bring their event sort of into a more modern age, where we're not so much like bowing down to very, very wealthy donors at a very, very fancy party, but we're actually making sure the party reflects all the values of the org.
Yeah, well, and you mentioned inclusivity. One of the things that kind of was an aha moment for me is we were doing the Microsoft Inclusivity Summit, and they were talking about one of the big things they said that caught my attention was how when the city started to design sidewalks for wheelchair access and wheelchair access pretty much everywhere, there's this effect where all of a sudden you're serving that population, but all of a sudden you realize that you've served a larger population,
Hmm.
like people pushing strollers,
Hmm.
people that are flown into the city and now they're rolling their luggage to their hotel. And so, even focusing on some of these hard problems to create inclusivity ends up benefiting so many different groups that we didn't even realize it was going to affect. So, I love that you brought that up because
Yeah.
that's one of the things that I've looked at that I'm like, wow,
Hmm.
that's an incredible
Yeah.
reason to go after inclusivity options and innovate in even those spaces to create access.
Yeah, and we're just going to make new habits. That my favorite example currently is we're doing in-room captions, just live captions. We just use an AI captioner and bring it up on a monitor inside the room,
Mhm.
so that every word that's spoken into microphone is then written out, hopefully accurately. But we find that's not just for folks with hearing loss, but it's also folks where English is not their first language. It
Yep.
really helps support their understanding what's going on, or even just a room where, hey, you've got that kind of glitchy speaker,
Yeah.
unfortunately, so you're not hearing clearly, but you're reading, and then you're able to
Yes.
participate. So it's one of the most simple additions to an event that we
Yeah.
can make in tech. But yeah, as you say, it kind of it raises so many boats that you didn't even necessarily expect.
Yeah, and I do that actually. Even when I watch TV or movies at home, I turn on the captions
People love those captions.
because it's like you said, for quiet times where you don't fully hear, you actually get to read what actually was said. So that's great. Well, how do people get a hold of you? And if they want to reach out and book you for an event, if there's nonprofits out there that also want to get your expertise, how do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, thank you for asking. It's Synchronicity, which is SYNCHRONICITY-events.com. Next time I name a company, it's going to be easier to spell. But Synchronicity Events. So yeah, you can find us in all the places on the internet. And if you drop a line into that contact page, I'm the one who answers it. So you will get an email from me.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thanks for coming out and thanks for being at the expo to share your expertise with everyone. Great. Thank you. Yep.